Midnight, sharp and impossible to ignore. I need a boyfriend to meet my parent this week, please. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, knowing that if she didn't solve this in 7 days, everything she'd built might unravel in front of the one person she could never disappoint. If you enjoy stories that remind us how unexpected kindness can change lives, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Tales. Tap like if this story touches you, and share your thoughts in the comments as we go along. Now let me tell you how one desperate message connected two very different lives. She was known in business magazines as a billionaire with perfect instincts, sharp suits, confident interviews, and numbers that seemed unreal. What most people never saw was the quiet apartment she returned to each night, the silence after the heels came off, the ache that money never managed to soften. Her success had come fast, but it had also come at a cost. Relationships didn't survive her schedule, and she learned early on that people often wanted what she had, not who she was. Her parent had never approved of the path she chose. They believed success should come with stability, family dinners, and a partner who stood beside you. Every call ended with the same gentle disappointment, and now there was an announcement she couldn't escape. They were flying in. They wanted to meet the man in her life. She'd laughed it off before, but this time there was no avoiding it. The visit was already booked. On the other side of the city, a single dad sat on the edge of a narrow bed, helping his young son finish homework at a tiny kitchen table. Life had shrunk after his wife passed away, not in meaning but in space and time. Every dollar was counted, every hour planned around school drop-offs, work shifts and bedtime stories. He slept on the sofa most nights, giving his son the only bedroom, and never complained. To him, love looked like sacrifice, not comfort. They crossed paths in the most ordinary way, at a neighborhood cafe tucked between a laundromat and a nail salon. She came in wearing sunglasses and exhaustion, trying to hide from the world for 15 minutes. He came in holding a backpack almost as big as his son, ordering hot chocolate and the cheapest sandwich on the menu. When the cafe's card reader crashed, she watched him quietly count coins, his ears turning red as he apologized to the cashier. Without thinking, she stepped forward and paid. He tried to refuse, but she smiled and said it was nothing, just pass it on someday. Their eyes met for a brief second, and something honest passed between them. Not romance, recognition, two people carrying more than they showed. They began to see each other there often. Short conversations turned into longer ones. She learned about his son, about bedtime routines and school projects. He learned she traveled a lot for work and liked the cafe because no one asked questions. One afternoon, after a long call that left her visibly shaken, she blurted it out. She needed someone to pretend to be her boyfriend for a week. Just dinners, just smiles, just enough to keep the peace. He almost laughed. He told her he barely owned a decent jacket and hadn't slept in a real bed in years. She surprised him by saying she didn't want someone polished. She wanted someone real. He surprised himself by saying yes, but only if he could be honest about who he was. And one more condition. He wasn't sleeping on a sofa if he was playing the part of a partner. The week unfolded like something neither of them had planned. He met her parent at a neat suburban house filled with old photos and cautious warmth. He talked about raising a child alone, about love that doesn't disappear when someone does. He listened more than he spoke. He fixed a squeaky door without being asked. He helped cook dinner and stayed late to wash dishes, even when no one was watching. She watched all of this with a mix of gratitude and confusion. This wasn't part of the deal. He wasn't performing. He was just being himself. At night, when they talked quietly after long days, she admitted how lonely success could be. He admitted how heavy responsibility felt when you had no one to share it with. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just two people finally exhaling. Her parents saw what no resume could show. They saw the way he checked on her when she went quiet, the way she laughed more easily around him, the way he spoke about his son with a tenderness that couldn't be faked. Approval came not in words, but in relief, in a softened gaze, in a simple statement that she seemed happy. When the week ended, reality returned. He went back to his small apartment. She went back to meetings and flights, but something had shifted. She couldn't forget how peace felt around him. He couldn't forget how seen he felt around her. They kept meeting at the cafe, but now the conversations carried weight. Decisions followed. What began as a favor turned into support. She helped him move to a better place, closer to his son's school. Not as charity, but as partnership. He reminded her to slow down, to eat real meals, to sleep. They didn't rush to define anything. They let trust do the work. Months later, she stood in that same cafe, watching him laugh with his son, and realized something profound. Kindness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a paid sandwich, an honest conversation, a couch offered without complaint. Sometimes it's letting someone into your carefully guarded life. In the end, the biggest change wasn't in their circumstances, but in their understanding of love. It doesn't arrive perfectly packaged. It shows up when we're vulnerable enough to ask for help and brave enough to give it. And if this story reminds you of a moment when kindness changed your path, share it in the comments. You never know who needs to hear that a simple act can turn into a life rewritten with hope.